Hi, everyone. Welcome to Temple of Geek's Who Review, a Doctor Who inspired podcast for fans of the long running British science fiction television series. I'm your host, Elizabeth, aka Lady of Time Cosplay.
And I'm your host, Nate, aka Doc in the Box.
We are massive Doctor Who fans, and we're here to talk about all things Doctor Who. Throughout our series, we'll be discussing the latest episodes, classic series, spin offs, and everything in between.
We'll also be bringing you interviews with people who have worked in and around the series, behind the scenes information, and all sorts of Doctor Who related fun.
So, whether you're a longtime fan or just getting started with the show on Disney Plus, we hope you'll join us for the ride.
Today we'll be discussing Lucky Day, written by Pete McTighe, if I said that
Yes.
correctly.
Yeah. And I mean, no spoilers right this second, but like this season of Doctor Who is becoming one of my all-time favorites, I think. But that said, big spoilers if you have not yet watched Lucky Day, and you really want to go into this one blind because holy cow, I know we keep saying that for this season, but it's true because they have done some really great twists and turns this season, I think.
This episode specifically had some interesting choices,
Yes.
I will say. So leave, come back, and then listen.
Yes,
We
exactly.
welcome you at any point in time. However, if you come too soon, um, we'll kick you out.
Yeah. So just to start, what did you think of the episode overall?
Oh boy. So, with how you introduced it, I think okay. Let me put it this way. I took notes on this episode, but I think I took notes for all the wrong reasons. Um, because even through before the twists and before everything else, everything just felt kind of off to me, and I have a feeling that um, how it played out. I don't think this is going to be a fan favorite at all. I think we're going to actually hear a lot of hemming and hawing about this episode. Um, and I honestly think, at least for me, and this is what made me hem and haw about it even more, I think it's the placement of the episode. You couldn't place it
Mm.
anywhere else in the season. I understand that. But when they were wrapping up series one, just before series two, they're already filming series two. I feel like this episode would have been a lot better and more intriguing if we had it as like a teaser episode in between the two seasons.
Yeah, like almost if they had done this as like a Christmas special or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have to be a special, but if they did something where it was in between the seasons, it would have made Belinda's story a lot more interesting, I think. It's already interesting, but watching it in this succession in the middle of Belinda's story, I liked seeing Ruby again, but I felt cheated out of time with Belinda, especially with how little episodes we get with each companion each season now. So I already went into it when I realized going into it when I realized she wasn't going to be in it at all. I already felt kind of cheated out and upset just from that.
Yeah, like I definitely get what you're saying. Where like it would have been nice. Yeah, it's that whole thing where we only have 8 episodes a season now, and whereas last season I understood why we had a Doctor Light episode because of Shudigatwa's filming schedule to wrap up sex education and stuff like that. This time I was like, but for why are we having another Doctor Light episode? Like, I really enjoyed the episode, to be clear, but I would have to agree that, yeah, it kind of is like, in terms of we don't get any Belinda and we get very little Doctor. Granted, what we do get of the Doctor is quite phenomenal, but yeah, I definitely get where that's a criticism for sure. I really
Well,
thought that, like, from the trailers and everything, I really thought that like the Doctor and Belinda would be in it a lot more than they were, especially Belinda. I thought that they were all going to meet, especially because when they first announced Verada Sethu as the new companion, they did that with a picture of her and Shooty and Millie all together. So I thought, oh, they're all going to have an episode together, but guess not.
yeah, and
Though
that would have been fine.
maybe the finale. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that would have been fine if it was I forgot the guy's name already because he was so unimportant to me, even though he was the main character.
Conrad.
Conrad, yeah. If it was Conrad, Ruby, and Belinda, I think I know the dynamic would have been off. It wouldn't have really worked with the story, but I would have been less upset with the placement of the episode, I think, because even with um, season one's Doctor Light episode, it was a Ruby feature. You still had Ruby. With this one, it was just removing Belinda altogether, and you didn't get any additional development out of that character, which we're already enjoying, and I felt cheated out of that.
Yeah, which I definitely see that. It would have been nice, like I don't know where you would put it, but it would have been nice if this was considered like an extra episode rather than part of the 8 episodes that we get per season. Just because, to talk a little bit about the ending, because we always skip around on this podcast,
Yes.
it it would have taken away from the mystery of where the doctor heard Belinda's name, and I think there is still more to that mystery. Like, yes, we know where he heard her name first now, but we still don't know why he went looking for her specifically, especially because it was apparently not directly after he had that conversation with Conrad either.
Well, it
um
could have been, actually, because he was
well,
already done with Ruby.
yeah, I mean, it could have been. I mean, directly, I mean, in terms of like he definitely had a different outfit on.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
But just to, because who knows if he knew that he had to go looking for her at that moment, or that he would just meet her, you know organically, for lack of a better term. So I don't know. Yeah, I think I do agree that I'm a little sad that we didn't get more Belinda in this episode, but I do think it was a really great episode. Just the, like you said, the placement of when it is in the series, and with the limited number of episodes we have per season now, that did
Yeah, I
not.
honestly think that the placement of it in between, interrupting, I should say, Belinda's story is really what's going to bring down the peer reviews of it.
Hmm.
Because it's definitely a very intriguing episode, and it felt more. And I think I know where they're going with this because it felt like they were bringing Unit back into the picture, and that's going to be like their whole like this is going to be our new Torchwood feel because it felt kind of a little bit like that, but not quite. Um, I
Well,
don't
I
know.
will say the actor, the writer who wrote this episode, is also co-writing the spin-off that's coming out next season or next year, The War Between the Land and the Sea. Pete McTighe is a co-writer with Russell T Davies, so that's part of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, when the music came up, when obviously we're jumping around, we're a time and
Yeah,
space podcast.
the Doctor
Um,
Who podcast. What do you
yeah,
know?
we're a Doctor Who podcast. Time is irrelevant here. Um, but jumping onto that, when Unit came out, when the Shriek, we'll put in quotes, were starting to come after them, the music, it wasn't bad, but it felt like really weird when they just all of a sudden just blared it. And I think they were pilot. Murray Gold usually hits everything, like he's pretty on point. But for whatever reason, this felt a little jarring going into that music, and I feel like they were trying to pilot their Unit series music.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that, but I'd have to rewatch that part again. I was more focused on being like, "Yay, Kate's here!" kind of thing. So I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, because we're talking about that, it so the episode clearly, as we've already kind of discussed a little bit, takes a really hard turn like halfway through the episode. Was this episode at all what you expected it to be, even outside of the disappointment of not seeing Belinda as much as we'd hoped?
Definitely not. So I'm gonna go kind of almost full circle, but kind of caving in on itself at the same time because that's just how things work. The whole Conrad thing bothers me, and not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of things that bother me, but we're going to start with the core thing. So the Doctor and Belinda land in 2007. They meet this child named Conrad. He gives them a coin. This is your lucky coin. And then we go to the end of the episode where the Doctor knows who this person is and confronts them and is like, you're basically what's ruining the world. Like, you don't do this, blah, 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 blah. And they leave on a not positive note. You can tell that the doctor was just like, I'm done with you. Like, disengage. I'm never gonna get through to you. You are. There are a lot of parallels to this. We can cover that later. Uh,
Nice. Ooh,
uh,
ooh.
but there are bootstrap paradoxes in the Doctor Who universe. We have them all the time. However, this is a bootstrap paradox that the Doctor would not allow to happen. So the Doctor already knows about this individual, already knows that they have has knowledge about Belinda, and you're telling me that after all that, the Doctor still is oblivious to who this child Conrad is when they land in the future.
Mm.
That and there is another part of that threw me off too, actually, because I took notes in order. I just remembered now because I was talking about how out of character that would have been. Doctor would not never have allowed that type of bootstrap paradox to occur. He would have interrupted that. That's not a fixed point in time, I don't think, because he already has the information of Belinda. So he lands in 2007, and the Doctor has been notorious for, where are we? Chill factor is this, blah, 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 and just knows everything about his time and setting. Has no idea where they are. Well, he knows he's there in London. He can tell there's fireworks, there's New Year, but can't feel the year. And I felt like that was very strange.
Hmm. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that though. I mean, sometimes when he does that, kind of like when you were talking about that, all I could think of is the opening to the Unicorn and the Wasp, and he's like, "Oh, it must be da 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 da," and Donna's just like, "Or maybe it's that big vintage car coming up the driveway," kind of thing. Um, yeah, I think what would really factor into that in terms of how I would feel about like the Doctor not realizing who Conrad is in that moment when he's with Belinda after he's already told him off before he's met Belinda, is how much time exactly the Doctor had in between that moment and when he meets Belinda, and like how much time has passed for him. I mean, because there's a lot of kids, who knows? Because I'm sure the kid didn't tell him his full name to start with, kind of thing, and he didn't have the coin when the Doctor told him off. So I don't know, but that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah. But you would think, like, maybe not hand a coin to anyone named Conrad.
Yeah, maybe. Though he may not have known about the coin because he didn't have it on him. But yeah, I guess it depends on how much Ruby or Kate told him about the guy. And I will say, I'm just gonna get this out of there because like every time I say the word Conrad, the Bye Bye Birdie songs go through my head. I don't know if anybody else had that issue. That
Not
might just
me.
be a me thing. That might just be a me thing. Yeah.
I also found it kind of weird that this guy apparently was doing a deep dive. We're gonna start slow on this because there's a lot to like unwrap with him.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy does a deep dive on the Doctor and has this Lucky Day podcast that he just talks about, paranormal stuff and I guess I'm assuming because Ruby wouldn't be on it if it was a negative thing. I guess it was a whole positive thing, and Unit had and nobody had any say or concern about like, oh, don't go on this guy's podcast, or maybe we should look him up, or like, what's going on with this person that you're so involved with now. Um, and then to find out that he's got this whole double thing with this think tank and Unit, and nobody had no idea, yet he's been investigating the Doctor and looking into the Doctor for years. And also, I'm going to answer this question with a question,
Okay.
because one might think, how do you deep dive into the Doctor and then come up thinking everything's fake? It's a deep state lie. All this stuff is bullshit. Everyone's lying to us. And the answer to that question is, how do you get to where we are in America today?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's whether that makes people mad or not. That's basically the parallels we're getting into this
Yeah.
episode, specifically with this guy. He wasn't a tech billionaire. He wasn't a tech billionaire, but he was definitely wealthy. He was definitely smart, and he definitely used people's fear and ignorance for his own benefit, to the point where he had basically um, a we're just how am I going to put this? Um, he had a dark think tank hat on. We'll just call it
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For reference, in case anybody's wondering, season 2 of Doctor Who wrapped filming May 24th, 2024. So,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. So they do
yeah.
we have the new Simpsons?
Mm-hmm.
We have the
Russell,
new
can you
Simpsons.
write? Can you get your writers to do a little bit more hopeful stuff, please? Because like the
No.
entire time I was watching the episode, I was just like, ugh. But I will say the reveal that they had with Conrad and with his whole think tank thing. So to go on a slight tangent, sometimes when you see certain actors, you have a certain expectation of what their characters are going to be like, right? Like the example that I thought of is Mallory Jansen was in a show called Gallivant, where she played this awful, awful social climbing lady, basically. And she was awful and mean and just was willing to murder anybody. Gallivant ends. She is cast in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she's like this nice robot lady, da, 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 but I'm sitting here the entire time like, no, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. And then finally in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she does turn into a crazy lady again, and starts murdering people and puts them into a weird alternate universe computer thing. It's been a hot minute since I've watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this was kind of like the polar opposite of that, because Jonah Hauer King, if anybody is sitting there thinking to themselves, where do I know this guy from? He was Prince Eric in the live action Little Mermaid, okay? And I have not seen a ton of his other stuff, but I also was a big fan of him in The World on Fire season 1. I haven't gotten a chance to watch season 2 yet. He was phenomenal in that. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh, this is so sweet. We've got a Disney prince and he's going to be so nice to Ruby. And so then the moment he's like, haha, I got you, I yelled at my computer. I might have yelled some things that I don't usually say out loud. Like, the less family friendly version of butthole. I yelled at that at my computer several times because I was mad and had been tricked.
Well, you had
Because
jumped
this
on,
Disney prince is being a butt.
yeah.
Ah!
Well, you had jumped on the idea of like, can you write some happier stuff? And there was honestly a point after the whole like reveal, and it went pretty deep dive into that whole like everything's turning on units. There's this whole movement of people who think that everything's a lie, where I was left feeling, and this is why I think we're going to get a lot, another reason why there's going to be a lot of hemming and hawing about this episode, and why it's not going to be as peer reviewed. And it's not because it was written bad. They did a good job with it, and there were a lot of, in my opinion, at least if you live in America right now, I think there were a lot of real world parallels to certain things that are going on. And part of me actually just wanted to turn the episode off, because I watch Doctor Who, and the things that I love, I enjoy and delve into or dive into or whatever, because I we need escapism. We need something that makes us happy, and we and do appreciate real world tie-ins and things like that. But this one for me got to a point where I'm just like, I don't like this at all. And I'm not saying that the episode was bad. Part of it, again, I think was the timing, because the season was going on a high, and we're enjoying Belinda and the Doctor. No offense to anyone, the writer, director, anyone on this episode at all. I think the placement had a lot to do with that as well. Like, I don't I don't
I,
know how else to put it.
I always feel bad for writers that you can tell that they probably think they're doing a really extreme version of something only for that to come to pass anyway. Which I think is kind of what happened here a little bit. I mean, definitely has some allegories with things that have happened even outside of, very current events. But, you know, in practice, in writing on the page, okay, the people in the UK should be more than aware that aliens exist because they've been through so many things. Like even
Yeah.
2007 when they landed that new year, that's roughly when an entire hospital gets taken to the moon, that sort of thing. In practice, that should be silly to be able to think that some people online would be able to convince everybody that that's fake and that they have an agenda even though they never define what that agenda is. Da, 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 da. And then 2025 happens. Yeah. I definitely get what you're saying though, because it's like there was a moment at the end of the scene when Conrad has confronted Kate and Unit and everybody in that room, where he says, "No, I lied, it's all real," kind of thing. And for a moment, I'm like, "Oh, he learned. That's unrealistic based on what I've seen." And then, of course, he truly had not actually learned. So it was very realistic in a way that I was like, it would have been nice to have some hope that the guy could have changed a little bit, but okay.
I would have not cared if he died.
Yeah. I have a feeling he's gonna pop up in the season again, though. I feel like
I
just my
hope we just never see him again, but we
yeah,
probably will. It's
we
probably going to
probably
be like oh my gosh, it's going to be like I forgot what they called themselves, the trio or whatever. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the three brothers that were hunting tracking down Buffy. I think it was like season second to last season. It's
never
been a
seen
long time. It's okay. I don't barely remember it because it's been
it.
so long. I watched it all, but I
Okay.
barely remembered it. There were three brothers that um, were just normal dudes, but they were just so involved in trying to figure out everything about like Buffy and everything that's going on, and end up being the main antagonists of that season. Um,
Okay.
and I don't know if that's what this guy's going to end up being, like creating some
I mean, he might wind
coalition
up
or
being
whatever.
Mrs. Flood's companion.
Ooh, the governor.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah. We'll talk
Yeah,
about
I,
that
I
later.
feel like that's a red herring because it is a position,
It
but
is.
it's
Yes.
very Time Lord seating for someone
Yes.
to say a title or something like that.
Mm-hmm. For
Yeah.
sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've kind of already touched on this, but like, what were some of the other like standout moments and performances you had for the episode too? Because there was a lot to unpack.
One part that actually did stick out for me, I'm gonna have to go through my notes, but the part that did come to mind was I do so Ruby in the bar or whatever when she's having her PTSD conversation and she's talking about how she's gone through so much and she's in fight or flight and she's kind of like starting to break down. I really enjoyed that. Like we don't really get to see the remains of what people are after the doctor leaves. Um, we don't get a lot of that. We might get glimpses like when Tin walked through and just saw people being badasses, but we don't see how people return back to normal lives. Um, and I, even though the whole interaction between her and everyone was fake, uh, I enjoyed seeing that part of a companion just struggling to not be paranoid that everything is going to end up turning into something evil and attacking them.
Yeah, for sure. That was really sweet. But yeah, because again, that's why it like made me so angry when he revealed himself. Because I'm like, but you were being so sweet. Like it was just it was Donna and Lance all over again. But like somehow much worse because we actually saw the relationship grow in a way that seemed sincere from both of their ends, but was not. Versus kind of the flashback that you get with Lance and Donna. You can tell that he's a little like,
Yeah,
but. Oh,
I have
because
I have
I mean I think
words
I
on
kind of
that
said this
too.
earlier, but or at least I had it in my notes, but like in the first episode with with Alan and Belinda, kind of like the first thing that you hear him say is a big red flag. I know girls aren't good at maths. Versus with Conrad, the like kind of moments of like, you really only get once you know he's not who he's pretending to be, where because he makes some comment about like, oh, what do you have to say about the trolls online that say that units just and aliens are made up and whatever, where that's the position he's taking, but he does it in a way that you don't kind of immediately pick up on. Just like shout out to Joan Howard King for such a great performance, I guess, because just
Yeah, and
hated it.
I find it hard to believe. One, obviously, we already touched on this, that someone doing not just a deep dive into Unit is its own thing. Some people might not trust Unit as itself, not knowing about the Doctor. That's a whole other thing. This dude has seen the TARDIS land, has seen it take off, um, twice at minimum two times. The second time, actually, I'm going to put this in here because of time frame thing. We're assuming uh, it was almost immediately after the Devil's Cord, because that's what they weren't in those clothes, but that's what they were talking about. Um, and then on top of learning all the information on the Doctor and doing all this like investigating, he spends time with Ruby and doesn't gain any type of change of heart on anything. Like I would have understood this more if he got to the point where everything was like he had the whole think tank thing and he was part of it, and everything was happening, and then it got to a point where he's like, this has gone too far, I can't do this anymore, and then someone said, you're not in command, I'm taking over now, and then it just snowballed from there. That would have been more, I would have understood that more from this character, with the information and experience, and especially the exposure to the genuine exposure he had to Ruby, because she was he I mean, how does he think that she's lying to him the entire time that they're just like hanging out and dating? And then he's probably met their parents at some point. I did enjoy seeing the whole family together, her and both moms, everyone just like acting in harmony and being together. That was a really, actually, that was another standout scene. Just even how short it was, just seeing uh, the Nana, her Nan and both moms just in the kitchen discussing her going out. I like that. Um, I have a hard time thinking that this guy never had a change of heart with everything that he was exposed to.
Yeah, I think that's just another like unfortunate real world parallel we're seeing. I mean, because even I wrote down a quote that Ruby says. She said, the Shirley says, this is a grudge match dressed up as a youth moment, as a youth movement, and Ruby says, no, it's about more than that. It's about power, and this is giving him a voice, right? I mean, he's been craving attention his whole life, and his mom practically ignored him until the day she died. Yes, we do find out that his mom is not dead,
Yeah.
but it's just so much about power for him, which I think, unfortunately, we see a lot again in real life right now, where people kind of don't really care what the consequences of their actions are until it does directly affect them. And they'll say whatever they can and whatever they want just to get power and to instill fear in people, to make up just nonsense about other people so that they can feel like they're powerful and like you know, they can do whatever they want, even if whatever they want is very, very harmful in the long term or even short term. And it's like you said, it was kind of a depressing episode given the current everything going on, especially in the States. Um, but it's unfortunate that like yeah, people you can get people to spend as much time with whatever group it is that they're trying to rally against, but they're still gonna if it benefits them to treat those people as if they are liars or less than anybody, and doing that gives them power, there's people who are still going to do that because they don't have a conscience that says, hey, maybe I should not do this just so that I can feel powerful and just so that I feel like I have more control over my life. And it's sad, you know. It's aggravating, but it's also
Yeah.
very sad to think that there are genuinely people out there that they don't care who they hurt. They just want to feel powerful and in control.
Now, another praise I do have to give to this episode. So I've given two so far. Because this episode just wasn't for me at this moment. That's what's really bringing it down for me, and also the current state of everything. It was a mood dropper. So it wasn't a terrible episode. I'm not saying it was terrible, but there was the PTSD standout where Ruby was breaking down, and then the moment where her family was in the kitchen and they're all interacting. That was a great moment.
She
Another
just
thing,
saw the Witcher Man. It's like, oh,
I,
I, I love Cherry Sunday. She's so great. I hope she's in more episodes because she's delightful.
I hope she ends up on her own little accidental adventure,
Yeah, kind of like when the doctor accidentally took Jackie along that one time.
or even if it wasn't like with anyone, just like I want like just for whatever reason something happens and she's in a place, like even if it was like a short, like someone teleported her somewhere by accident. It's like, what is going on here? And then like some like mischief happens and then they send her back and then that was
Yeah.
it. Like just something silly. um the other moment I really enjoyed, and it was more for a visual storytelling factor, was in the pub when she was talking about the shriek and how it hunts, and then it did the visual storytelling of like the lights flickering and the shriek in the distance and everything like that. I thought that was really cool. It made it kind of it gave it a more like, this is going to be a thriller episode, like it's going to be like scary and chilling, but obviously we didn't get that. But I enjoyed that part. And the part that bugged me immediately after that was she's like, you don't have to worry about that. Here's the antidote. Take it tonight. And I'm like, why not take it right now? Why not tell him go home and take it right now? Don't, oh, take it at night occasionally. I mean, I know it's locked up, but like, don't you want to make sure someone does something that's not going to threaten
I
possibly the
know.
world?
Like when he initially said, "Oh, I didn't take the antidote," I was like, "Oh, are we getting into some anti-vax allegory here?"
Mm-mm.
Because that's what it felt like for a moment before the full reveal happened. I was
Yeah,
just like, "Oh,
I I mean, honestly, with how this episode went, I wouldn't have been surprised by that.
right, yeah,
Now that you, but that wasn't, I didn't even think of that at all.
yeah,
My immediate connection to that was he was so obsessed with the doctor that he didn't take it because he wanted the doctor to come save him, which
yeah."
didn't
That's a
end
good
up
point.
being the case. But when he did that, oh, I was so, when that happened, I was so pissed. Like I was already, oh no, no, that's actually the first point where I was starting to get upset, and just started to not like him.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Ruby, like, even though you could tell that Ruby really wanted to like him before everything happened. I was glad that she kind of told him off. She's like, "No, you're not being brave. You're just being stupid. You don't know what you've done."
And
Like, tell him.
the whole like the whole part where he was talking to her about like, oh, you're something about the doctor, I forget, like it was during that one point, and he's like basically said, I can be all that, just let me be the doctor in your life, basically. I'm like, what creep type person is this? And I don't
Yeah.
know. um Says because some of that doesn't line up, I think, to the end result, because it's kind of overselling the whole turning on them thing. But then again, the whole turning on them thing was just him wanting attention and kind of wanting, I guess, the doctor in the end, but then rejected the doctor. There was a lot of conflicted stuff. I think this person was just like, there's no hope for this person regardless. Like,
Yeah.
there's no justifying what they do. I have no clue.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that part in the cafe when she was telling that story though, because another kind of like interesting camera thing that I noticed when I was watching the episode is because a lot this is very much like from Ruby's point of view, even though we're not like the camera looking out from her eyes or whatever. It's very much a story from her perspective. And I thought it was really interesting. If you watch a lot of the scenes where it's her and Conrad, especially when they're like out on a date or even talking on their podcast, the background of any shot with them, especially with him, is very like it's a very soft focus in the background. Like I was trying to read like the headlines on the newspapers behind him when I watched it a second time to see if I had missed any like, ooh, this guy's, this podcast isn't what he's representing it to Ruby as kind of thing.
Hmm.
And you can't really read very much of it, and I think that's on purpose. I mean, you can kind of make out something about Unit. He's got a picture of the TARDIS, um, but like when it switches to the camera that they're using to record the podcast, like the video feed of the podcast, it's much clearer. You can't see very much of the newspapers, but you can like actually read it. And it says something about Congress and something about classification kind of thing. But it's much clearer than when it's the shot of Ruby looking at him, where she's very focused on him and not so much what's in the background, which I thought was very interesting. And kind of the same thing happens when they go on like their first date in the bar and it's a very soft background, and then also when they get to the English village when they're walking off the bus, it's it was kind of even more apparent where it to the point where I'm not sure if that scene in particular was a lens uh, effect with the soft background focus, or if it was something that was applied later, because it seemed like there's a bit more of a hard edge of where the focus really went out of focus, for lack of a better term. But I thought it
Okay.
was a really cool kind of way to show how invested in wanting Conrad to be a good person Ruby was, where she kind of maybe might have missed some things that,
I think
you know,
they were
that,
I think they were trying to give the feeling of this is like a romantic
yeah,
relationship. They're
that
interested in
too.
each other. It's all just about them. And then the podcast like live view, you can't do that in because it's not
Yeah.
going to look like it's a podcast. So you had to take a break from it from that and then go back into the it's all about them and us,
Yeah, but it
which
was just such an interesting contrast between like the objective kind of podcast camera and like Ruby's point of view of like, oh, he's cute, kind of
yeah.
thing.
And I have thoughts and feelings on a lot of this stuff that doesn't make sense to me, and maybe things were left out. Because like they focused on, or they made a point to be like, how long have you guys known each other? 5 days, and like they were rapidly like falling for each other and stuff like that. And to be honest, at first I thought it was the pheromone, like
Okay.
maybe it it was they were treated or possibly treated. Well, he wasn't at the time, but maybe they were attracted to maybe it was they were attracted to each other because of the pheromone, which didn't end up being the case. But it seemed like he was it was a ploy for him. It was all a game for him, so we can't say that he fell too fast. But she was falling super fast, and it felt really weird, even though I know she just wants to have a normal life, wants to be safe, and anything that feels safe is very you're gonna want to latch onto that, especially
Mm.
post going through everything that she has. But there was, it would have been a little. This is that one thing where it's like that one line would have made a difference for me.
Or
If
even
like
just like captions for like a month or like a week later or 5 days,
no,
kind of thing.
no, not even that, not even that. For me, like the one line, like if he's like, like I had the whole think tank thing or whatever. It's like I something like I've been studying unit blah blah blah, and I've been watching you, Ruby. Oh, I've been watching you, I've been studying you, I know everything you like, and you fell for it all. Just something like that, because that would have made more sense to how like rapid they moved, at least to me. Like if he like looked it into everything that she was and just became what everything that he thought she wanted.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah, because the thing that I keep coming back to, uh, in terms of like, yes, there does needs to be some like logical sense, especially when you're dealing with a story, but when real life has been so like crazy in terms of like people's motivations or lack thereof. Uh, yeah, I don't know. um, yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from though. Um, I I again I keep coming back to the scene where he come finally gets into unit and is confronting Kate Stewart. I when he badmouthed Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, I I yelled at my computer, punch him in the face. Punch him in the face, Kate. Because that made me so like I have not seen a lot of episodes with the Brigadier, but I know how important he is to the Doctor and to the story of Doctor Who. And I was just like, don't you dare kind of thing. And I really, really loved Kate's line about, you know, actually, I'm glad the doctor's not here because he would have stopped me. And kind of in that moment, like the second time I watched it, I was like, you know what, Kate? I'm not sure he would have. I think he might have stopped the monster a little bit before she did, but I don't think he would have necessarily stopped her releasing the monster,
Yeah, that's fair.
just depending on what he's been through lately. But yeah, I love Kate Stewart. She's awesome. I'm so
She's
glad
a
that we're getting Unit
badass.
in the spinoff because she is amazing.
Kate's
And
a
if
badass.
I
She's
haven't
such a
listened to a,
fucking badass.
she's so cool. She's so cool. And I haven't listened to a lot of the Unit stuff that she's done for Big Finish, but the ones that I have listened to, she's just so fun, and I love her. I wish they would kind of try and bring in some of the characters from the audios too, but Kate Stewart is like one of the best characters that has been added to Doctor Who. That's not a ongoing companion
it
thing.
was it was a little moment, but I really enjoyed when Ruby was calling into Unit. There's just one, just the fact that she can call into Kate Stewart like, "Hey,
Yes.
this is what's going on." She's like, "Oh yeah, no, I got you. I'll just check it in right now." And her working late and panning to her little himbo boyfriend,
God, that part's
who
so
we
weird.
know that's what's
Yeah,
going
that
on.
part's
We
annoying.
know
Yeah.
that's what's going on. Go, Kate.
I don't know how I feel about that, but yeah. Kate, I mean, because she's said in past episodes that she is a mother and a divorcee, but I'm still like, Kate, girlfriend, dating someone under you seems like a not a great HR move, but okay.
I mean, maybe he enjoys being under her.
Okay. Alrighty then. Um,
That took a turn.
yeah.
Um, but also on the point of like when Ruby calls Unit and they all show up, was still confused about like the whole like, haha, I'm part of think tank and we got you.
Torres
Oh,
mustache.
yeah. Oh, we're exposing your lies. I'm like, they showed up to a potential threat or what they thought was a potential threat. These actors that you're saying are deep state are your actors. Um, it'd be like someone pulling a fire alarm when there's no fire and then laughing at the fire department saying, "Ha, there's no fire. I've never seen a fire before. You guys are faking. I'm exposing your lies." Like all you're doing is showing that the system's working and that they responded. There was no gotcha moment here because those costumes or whatever were your own. Like, how is this like? I don't know. I was really getting. I think that was about the point where I was starting to get really upset with the episode. I'm like, I don't want to watch this
Again, I
anymore.
just
I did, but like, ugh.
again, I get it. It's just like it's just paralleling the lack of logic that the people who are like Conrad in real life have, where they don't really care how people arrive to agreeing with them. They just want people to agree with them, and they will do whatever nonsense and hope that people don't call them out on their BS.
Well, and then you cut to all like everyone streaming, and then the basically like Fox News people, I guess
I
you're
am
gonna
so
say,
the
like
lady. I so upset that Trinity Wells is a Fox newscaster. Apparently, I
Yeah,
was like,
the
"Lady,
innocent.
you have covered multiple alien incursions, Trinity Wells.
Yeah,
What? What? What?"
an innocent podcaster has been put behind bars for exposing lies. Like, I'm sorry, what are we? Is this Joe Rogan? Like, what the hell are we doing? Like, I don't know.
Oh
Like I
man.
said, this episode, like around to that point, was paralleling things too much to where I did
Mm-hmm.
debate turning it off. Um, and it wasn't because it was bad. It's just like it's bad timing for some of
Exactly.
us in the real world right now.
Mm-hmm. No,
Um, and
exactly.
it's not, again, it's not that it was a bad story. It's just,
It was done a little too well in parts.
yeah, it hit a little too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Um, I absolutely loved the entire, even though like Conrad wound up being so like flippant about it. I loved the scene where the doctor was telling him off, especially the line that he has: "Cowards like you weaponize lies, taking people's insecurity and fear and making it into currency. You are exhausting." And I'm like, exactly. It's so exhausting to deal with people like this. And not even just, I mean, yes, obviously the larger parallel is to real world political stuff, but also like sometimes it feels like the same thing kind of happens in fandom as well, where people will know that something is false, but they will repeat it because it gets them clicks and likes and comments and interactions, and it's just so exhausting to deal with. Like kind of recently, where the rumor had started that Kathleen Kennedy was going to be stepping down from Lucasfilm, and then she came out and she said, "No, I'm not." But then there were still people celebrating that she was going to be not involved in Lucasfilm anymore, and it's like, uh, you know, or like people like Star Wars theory, where they will just like say the most incredibly like just like there shouldn't be bricks or zippers in Star Wars, and I'm like, but it's just it's just spewing nonsense until something sticks to whip up people being angry, and it is so exhausting to deal with and see.
But there are zippers in Star Wars. Luke Skywalker's pants were Levi's, bleached white.
I
Like,
know, I
like
know,
costume,
but
legitimately, they were
yeah,
Levi's.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yep. Or or the complaints that people had about an episode uh, about a scene in Andor last week, like that doesn't belong in Star Wars. I'm like, this is a grown up season. This is a grown up series dealing with real world parallels. Mm, I think there's lots of things to be discussed about that scene in Andor, but also like to act like, because like basically Star Wars theory said like the Empire wouldn't condone that, and I'm like,
Well, let's tread a little
um,
lightly here because we didn't give any Andor spoiler warnings yet.
yeah, that was last week's, but yes,
But
I mean
still,
I'm trying to dance around not giving huge spoilers, but it's just like it because like it's just exhausting because it happens in political stuff, which has like horrifying real world things that happen, and then to also see it happen in fandom spaces, especially with people who have made it their online personality to just whip up anger and dissent, is just so exhausting. And I really hope that we, in general, keep things positive. And we have our critiques, but
yeah.
I hope that we never stoop so low as to kind of rage bait for clicks, saying there shouldn't be bricks in Star Wars. There shouldn't be singing in Doctor Who. There's my rant for the day. Anyway, yeah.
Man, so there was a point in this episode where I didn't understand. I thought I understood, and then didn't understand again. And I guess I maybe understand. No, I don't. I don't know. Okay, so at the beginning, we're gonna go all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
Not the beginning. Um, so when he sees it, what was it, 17 years later, was it 2004, when he sees the TARDIS again, he goes into that building where the Shriek is, and hears this monster, and then sees faint images of it, and doesn't immediately runs out, um, and just is like, I hear this weird noise that sounds very mysterious and dangerous. I should probably go check this out. Like, there's
Some
a
people have,
certain type of people that do that, and I can't really say that on this podcast, but there's a certain type of people that are known to be like, are those bees? Let me go see if there's bees over there.
some people just don't have self-preservation, and for some people, like the doctor, that works out because he knows how to actually deal with it, and then for some people, they survive by the skin of their teeth, and because other people more qualified are around.
Yeah. So I didn't understand it, and then I thought I understood it when he did this whole think tank thing and was like, "Oh, they're just people in costumes." Like, okay, if we're gonna think in retrospect, maybe he thought that was all fake and being staged or whatever, even though no one's around, no one's watching, there's no cameras. What's the whole point of faking that? But then to find out that he didn't fake any of it, he does truly believe it. Like, why again, still? But then he did kind of like want to see the doctor, but even then he didn't. I don't know. It's so weird because even then he didn't like say anything. He didn't do anything when they went to take off. He took a picture. He was a creeper.
Yes,
Also, he took a
yeah,
picture of Ruby. That was it. He took a
yeah.
picture of Ruby. Didn't
Creeper that
take a
doesn't know
picture
how
of
to
the
turn the sound
TARDIS.
off on his phone.
Yeah, didn't take a picture of the TARDIS. Didn't even struggle to get his phone back out to be like, oh my god, let me get it taking off. Just took a picture of Ruby. I don't know. Like, there are a lot of things that rubbed me really weird, and that was another point where I thought maybe it was the pheromone that was on them, that he was like starting to become obsessed with her, and that's why they're falling in love. I thought it was going to be something like that. It wasn't. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on that whole thing, but alas, they will never be answered, and it is what it is.
I don't know if this is one that's getting a novelization or not. Um, I would love a novelization. I love the novelizations of Doctor Who. If anybody hasn't actually gotten a chance to watch, or not watch, to read those, I would recommend it because a lot of times you get some fun little extra tidbits of information. But yeah, yeah, you're right. Where there's some bits where it's like, okay, if you think about it a little bit more, it would have there might have been stuff that got cut that like maybe the person doing the editing didn't like think about, like, oh, we need to leave this line in for this reason to explain some stuff. But yeah, just overall, he just lacks a lot of logic, which again, unfortunately, just seems to me to be too close to real world sometimes. But you know,
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from as well. So yeah, yeah, it would like this was again an incredible episode, just a little too close. Like for example, I keep seeing clips. I keep getting clips on TikTok of Handmaid's Tale, and it looks like an incredible show, but it is not something I'm interested in watching at this moment. So you know, and that I get where you're coming from for sure. Um, is there anything else we want to talk about before we move on to the last bit of the episode?
No, I think I actually got most
Okay.
of all my notes. There was a point where I just stopped taking notes because I'm like,
Yeah, there's a part where I just started like writing down what they were saying because like I was like, these are some great quotes. I will say, jumping back into the podcast here, I will say one other line towards the end of the episode before we get into Mrs. Flood's appearance this week that I thought was very interesting is Conrad says, "Take me back to my prison and get off my world." And I'm like, yikes. Because what? Why do you think it's. I mean, yes, you live on Earth, but I would say that Earth is more the Doctor's world than yours because he does a lot more to actually protect it and not be like, oh, they're lying to you about aliens to forward their agenda. Like, dude, come on.
I have more of a feeling of like he just had so much of a grudge against the doctor at that point. Maybe because the doctor was disappointed in him and didn't welcome him or whatever. Maybe he was just like someone like get out of my house.
Yeah.
More of something like that. Just saying that, letting him know that he's not welcome or whatnot. And Judy did a good job, but the only, because I do have a critique. I almost have a critique about everything. I kind of wish he was a little bit angrier.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah. Yeah. But
Like him starting off nice threw me off, but I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of on par for him to like switch the tone and be like, hey, you know what? I'm fat, I'm fun, I love everything, but if if you ever tread near here, I will end you. Like
yeah,
I expected it to be like that, and it was, but it wasn't as um threatening. Like it was cold, it was blunt, it was straightforward, but I kind of wanted to see
just a
him a
little more.
little more angrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just the acting in that scene was incredible from both of them, I think.
Yeah.
Because like you don't usually get such so you don't get that confrontational scenes in the TARDIS that often. So it's like because usually the TARDIS is like, oh, we're having fun and we're gonna go to this place. Da, 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 da. You know, the jukebox is playing "Toxic" by Britney Spears. You know,
Yeah.
and so to see it's such a different tone than we usually see in the TARDIS, which I thought was interesting. Like,
Well, it's just like the doctor said, people are invited into the
mm-hmm.
TARDIS. They are, he can't say welcomed, but people who are in the TARDIS are usually welcomed in. Um, he wasn't welcomed. He was brought in to be given a warning. So that kind of tone would have, it was different by default.
Yeah, for sure. But since we are getting Tyler was talking about the end of the episode, it's been a week. Since we are getting towards talking about the end of the episode, you know, we're starting to get some more mystery solved. Who the doctor heard Belinda's name from, some more info on Mrs. Flood, even a bit of a mention about Ruby's dad, because some people thought that was going to be a thing, I guess. Do you have any thoughts on what we learned this episode or what's to come, especially because this is halfway through the season, which is crazy. And again, I miss having more episodes than 8.
Yeah. Um, I I almost feel like maybe this is where the doctor first heard about Belinda and then looked for her, because it wasn't like the I mean, I guess the doctor wouldn't know this, but we know this, so I guess I'm just assuming Conrad saw the doctor with Belinda with this face. So he knew that this doctor, well, also that the doctor, if he dove into the doctor, he would know the doctor had multiple faces too. And
Yeah.
how would, I don't know, just
And again, where was 14 during all of this? Like I appreciate what Russell was trying to do with having the bi generation, but also like you can't just be like this horrible thing is happening. We're gonna ignore the fact that there's a doctor who lives on Earth now.
I mean, at minimum, but he would have been in this episode if this was the case. Because this is the joke I'm gonna make. At minimum, you would think that 14 would be sitting at his desk in unit because he has a
Yep.
desk.
Yeah, you would think.
Um, but I forgot where I was going with that. Um, so I think that maybe that's the point when the doctor started looking for Belinda, or when at some point when he heard her come up was like, oh, I know that name. And credit to the child Conrad who remembered her full name, for full government name, when
Yes.
running up to Mama, I saw a blue box and a doctor and a Belinda Chandra. Like,
Okay.
okay.
I feel bad for baby Connor. Like he does turn out to be an awful person, but I did feel bad for him in that scene. I was like, oh, that's not okay. That's not okay at all.
No, but
Um,
in retrospect, I wish he would have felt that smack years later.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, I think it's such an interesting person for him to hear Belinda's name from, especially because, like I said earlier, I don't think that we're quite done with Conrad's character, especially because not for nothing, like he's not Jonah Hawking's not like maybe a huge name, but he's big enough that like he was in live action Little Mermaid as Prince Eric kind of thing, so like
Yeah.
people know who he is. He's a bit more of a bigger actor, like more well known to audiences outside of the UK than some of the other guest actors have been this season. So I feel like we'll see him again. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if we get more information on why the doctor decided to then go and try and find her. Uh, Versus like because all he gets from that interaction with Conrad is a name. He doesn't get how they met it or any of that. He just knows at some point in his future he will meet somebody called Belinda Chandra. He doesn't necessarily know that he has to go looking for her kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be interesting. I'm kind of glad that they didn't make Ruby's dad anybody crazy because that would have undermined Russell's whole thing where it's his again he said it was his response um
Ray.
to the Ray Palpatine Skywalker Ray Nobody thing, which I
Yeah.
appreciate. I've gone into that before on the podcast how I appreciate that, but you know, it's this whole thing. Star Wars, I love Star Wars, but holy cow, the fandom's exhausting. You gotta pick your battles, I guess. So I am glad that that wasn't a thing. I think it's kind of funny that they did address that because again, this was filming before the first season aired. So it's interesting to know that somebody in the back of their mind was thinking like, "Hey, we got to mention her dad, or else the fandom might be like, is her dad the master or something like that?" Kind of
Yeah, I guess.
thing.
Which was also why I thought they could have placed this in between the seasons because we knew that they
Yes,
were already filming all of these when
yeah,
season one was airing. Um, and I guess at the end of everything, I might be able to touch back. I'll probably forget about this episode. No offense to anyone, but maybe I'll touch back and be like, "Oh, the placement of that was perfect." But at this point, I feel like it should have been in between the seasons as like a teaser for what's to come.
yeah, yeah. I would agree. But yeah, with Mrs. Flood in the captions, if anybody didn't watch with the captions on, which I do just because I don't want to miss anything, and sometimes the accents are, depending on the accents, they can be a little bit hard to understand sometimes. The governor is capitalized. I did look it up. It is, I mean, it is a title in the UK prison system.
Yeah.
And from what I could read, sometimes it is capitalized when they're talking about that position, sometimes it isn't. But I thought it was interesting that they did make the choice to capitalize that, especially, you know, because that sounds like a very Time Lord
Well,
name.
I think my question on the subtitles, because I didn't watch it with subtitles, would be governor could be capitalized, could not.
Hmm.
What was the status of the?
It wasn't capitalized, but they don't capitalize the in the Doctor either.
Because maybe that's just me. I was like, usually I think the, because it's the doctor. What's your name?
Mhm.
The doctor.
Yeah. They don't usually capitalize it like that in the captions for the Doctor though.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. It might be a red herring. It's more than likely a red herring. But like I said, I wonder if Mr. Conrad here is going to wind up being the governor's uh, companion in some way.
I don't know. There's a part of me that, and this is really cheesy, and touching on, I don't know if anyone who listens to us is gonna think this or laugh at this or not. Um, so with everything that was going on with time and reality and things being weird and Miss Flood having keys and the way she was holding them and they were like kind of they did focus on the keys. Granted, they were trying to like make it so you didn't know who it was at first. So I guess the keys were like a really cool, mysterious thing to focus on anyway. It was giving me Sailor. Well, Sailor Pluto vibes. If I'm thinking of the right uh, outer planets scout correctly, because it's been a while. Yes, Sailor Pluto. She's the one with the keys.
I never watched Sailor Moon.
Oh,
I always tell people the closest I've gotten to watching anime is Miraculous Ladybug.
okay. So Sailor Pluto's the god of time, and she has the keys to time.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Hmm. That is an interesting parallel to know that. Yeah. So I just want to know what Mrs. Flood's deal is, and it'll be fun because I'm sure we're gonna like. I'm pretty sure Russell has said that we will know who Mrs. Flood is by the end of the
Okay.
season, but it's like I want to know now because I'm interested to know. But I'm
Well,
sure we won't find out more until the finale. Because as I said before, the in the trailer for season 2, we do see her in the audience at the song contest episode, which is not next week but the following week. Um, so I don't think we're going to get any more huge information about her before then, but I might be wrong. We'll see. I'm just very interested to know who she is for sure. Um, One other thing I will mention, I am jealous of all of you in the UK where you're going to get another uh, theater release for Doctor Who. They will be showing the 2 episode uh, finale for this season in the movie theaters, and they are doing that on May 31st. So they are not going to release 2 episodes on May 24th. So they're being weird about that date for some reason. That is the day that the second to last episode airs, but they will not be airing both episodes that day. So I thought that was interesting.
I do have to correct myself on something because I looked it up. Because I was like, wait, was it? Because again, it has been a while. So the focus on the keys and Miss Flood and everything remind me of Sailor Pluto because of the keys, but it wasn't that she's the god of time. I forgot. She was the guardian of the door of space and time,
Oh, okay.
and
Hmm.
she holds the keys for that door.
Still a
So it's
very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
interesting that Ms. Flood had, and they focused on the keys and everything. So
Yeah.
obviously that's probably not going to be anything, but just the
Well,
little Sailor Moon fan from me when I
yeah.
was a child saw that and was like, this is giving off Pluto to me.
You never know. Somebody will have to do a deep dive on Pete Matai's social media or something and see if he's a Sailor Moon fan. um, because again, like I said last week, it's kind of fun, or the other week, it's fun to see Russell and the other writers kind of sneak in references to things that are not Disney. Like when I saw the
Yet.
synopsis for the episode, I misread it as Shrek at first, and of course because I had also seen like the green goo, and I was like, huh, Shrek, huh? Oh,
That would have been great. Oh my
yeah,
god. If it was Shrek and then you know how like it like jumps by the screen and leaves the goo, like as it jumps by you hear like the like you know how what is the effect? The Doppler effect? Oh, I
yeah.
forget what yeah, where it goes. If all of a sudden you hear, "Hey now, it's a rock star."
Because at first I did the, apart from having seen like the little synopsis before I watched the episode, I was like, is this going to be Autons? Because there was all the mannequins, and I think a couple of
Yeah.
those mannequins might have been like disused uh, Weeping Angel statues because there was one that was like reaching out like this, and I'm like, that looks like a Weeping Angel statue under there. But
I thought there was going to be a connection to Autons also because I
yes.
swore one of them didn't move, but like there was a camera angle in one where it looked like it did this
Hmm.
for a brief moment, but I think that was just the camera movement while it was focusing on
Yep.
Conrad.
And then the green stuff was also funny to me because that's like kind of a Nickelodeon thing as well,
Yeah.
where they would slime people, which is its own thing apparently. I have not watched that documentary, but still, it's kind of more associated with Nickelodeon than it would be Disney. Green slime, but but yeah, just in terms of the mysteries, we still don't know where the robots got the certificate because they had a much older version of it, but it is the same one. I'm sure it's just that Belinda like goes way back in time at some point and they get it. Um, we're still just getting crumbs for Mrs. Flood, but you know, there's There's a lot still more to uncover. I'm very excited about next week's episode. It looks very, very cool.
Well, I have. Which one was next week's again?
Oh, it's the one that's set in Lagos. I can't remember the name. Hold
I
on.
can't remember the name either.
I love how Wikipedia, you have visited this page many times for the list of Doctor Who episodes. The Story and the Engine by Inua Elams is next week.
Hmm.
It looks
Okay.
like a very cool episode. I'm very intrigued to see what what that
Looks
episode is.
interesting. The setting
Yes.
and costumes are going to be great. Um,
Yes. When I
so
got the chance to do the, and you can find this article on the Temple of Geek website. When I got the chance to be part of the virtual press conference for Doctor Who, Shitty did mention his outfit in The Story and the Engine is one of his favorites that he's gotten to wear
oh,
uh,
nice.
for the season. So, just cool.
So what if it's something as simple as, because you mentioned the certificate, maybe she was just went into the future or somewhere at some point. What if it's something as simple as, man, this is gonna be so cheesy.
Okay.
Okay, so the two-part finale, the first part is Wish World,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a star certificate.
Oh my word. When
What
you
if
wish
she
upon a
just wished
star.
upon a star?
Oh my god. If Russell has worked in When You Wish Upon a Star, which is such like a classic Disney song, into his second season of Doctor Who on Disney Plus.
And I could just see the doctor too. Oh, honey. Oh, honey. Oh, you know what they say? When you wish upon a
Oh
star,
my
and we got it.
god.
Like, just so. It's like, oh, babes, when you wish upon us. Like, I can just hear him, like, say something like that and then sing the jingle and, like,
Oh,
put everything
easily.
together.
Yes. Oh my god. Russell, if that is what you have done, 10 out of 10. No notes. Oh my god. And now all that's going through my head is the Muppet Show is on Disney Plus if anybody hasn't watched it. There's an episode with Mark Hamill. And of course, this is way before Disney bought either Star Wars or the Muppets. At the end of the Muppet Show episode with Mark Hamill, they dance and sing to When You Wish Upon a Star. And it
Interesting.
is the weirdest thing in context of who owns them now, but yeah. Um,
Hmm.
Russell, if that's what you're pulling off, my guy, it's gonna make some people mad, but I'm gonna be delighted.
It'll be cheesy. It'll definitely be corny as
It would
hell.
be so cheesy, but like, if anybody could pull it off, it is probably him. Oh my word. That would be so funny. And that would be like a great moment for them to like use in like the fireworks show at Disneyland or something.
Yeah, he's like, oh, Belle, Belle, honey, oh, my little Tinker Bell, oh, when you wish upon a star.
Oh my word. That would be so funny. I hope that he worked that in somewhere. Oh, if we're right about this, we will definitely be coming back to that. That would be hilarious. Oh my word, I hope that's what happened.
Maybe, I don't know. Oh,
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Did we have anything else we want to talk about, or do we think we hit everything?
I think we have come to a close.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. Like, this episode was a lot. I really enjoyed it, but I definitely see where, with everything going on, it was a lot, especially like I said, when there was that moment where it seemed like he had learned his lesson, and I was like, oh, this is unrealistic, and then he hadn't learned his lesson. I'm like, yeah, there it is. um, Incredibly done, just a little too close to things at the
Yeah,
moment.
and
But
I
overall,
didn't hate the episode. In
yes.
retrospect, watching it, I wanted to turn it off. I'm not gonna lie. I'm giving my honest opinion. I wanted to turn it off mid episode just because I was getting it was I was looking for escapism and a fun episode, especially with the height of everything that we had, and it wasn't doing it for me, and I debated actually shutting it off. And I don't think it's going to hit with the audience as well as others. It wasn't a bad episode. I'm not saying that it was terrible. I'm not saying that it wasn't done and there weren't good parts to it. Just right now for me, I don't think it just wasn't hitting it for me. And I don't know. That's my honest opinion of it. Also, the
Yeah,
placement, we gone on for that. I think the placement of the episode mid-season, interrupting Belinda's story and cheating us out of an episode with such a wonderful character. No offense to Ruby, but I would love to have seen more Belinda, even if it was a filler episode. Uh, it is
yeah,
what it is.
it's what it is, you know. But yeah, but overall, excellently done. Just a little too like the fact that this was written and shot in 2023 to 2024 somewhere in there is just I applaud writers who you know I mean great job reading what I don't think that anybody would hope that this is where we are at this point in time with real life
Yeah.
stuff, but also like to be able to see those patterns and write these stories, which I think are partly needed, partly yes, sometimes can be a little like, oh, I don't want to have to deal with this in fiction as well. Um, but it's really incredible when writers are able to do that, especially when it's not, when it was done
Yeah.
almost over a year ago. So
They could, yeah, oh, hand it to that. Maybe it was like, this would never happen.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh.
oops, yeah, I know. Like, there's a if anybody is a fan of the Gallifrey audio series in the Big Finish is done, in their I'm trying to remember when it came out, but the first episode of kind of their not reboot, but kind of like uh, easiest jumping on point recently, it deals with Romana up for re-election as president, and she gets undermined by a jerk. And at one point, they say lock her up, and I'm like, oh, ah, great, because it was coming out around then. Uh, it's just like, boy. It's like I think stories like this are important because you do need to be able to see things maybe it's not quite an allegory because it's like almost exactly what's happening, um, but sometimes you need to see it just so that maybe you have an understanding of how to combat it and have an understanding of just like, hey, it's not completely hopeless, hopefully.
Or just
So
realize that some people are beyond hope,
yeah, sometimes that is
oddly
a
enough and
thing.
sadly enough.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
because
but
some
yeah,
people just they don't want to be helped because they want power no matter who it hurts, and it's really depressing. On that note,
on that note, uh, I guess it's my turn for
yeah,
outro. Okay. Yeah. So on that note, that's all that.
jeez, yeah. Sorry for the downer, but
Yeah.
yay.
Yeah, sorry for the downer, but this episode kind of was a downer episode, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, we'd be interested to know what other people thought of it. What were your opinions? How did it affect you? And what did you think of the twist and so forth? Please let us know wherever you're hearing this, or if whether you're hearing this, regardless, just interact with our post, whether it be on Blue Sky or TikTok or wherever you see us posting. We'd be interested to see your thought or hear your thoughts as well. But on that note, that's all for this episode of Temple of Geeks Who Review. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We hope you enjoyed this time with us. If you did, please make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. You can also follow us on social media for more Doctor Who content. You can find us on Blue Sky, TikTok, at Temple of Geek. You can join our Discord. The links will be in those bios. You can also visit us at Temple. You could also visit us at templeofgeek.com for Doctor Who guides, episode reviews, news, and then just other fandom things, whether it be Star Wars or I almost said Andor, which is Star Wars, like Marvel Star Wars, video games. We are not just Doctor Who. We have a number of fandoms that we cover. We just all at Temple of Geek happen to really love Doctor Who. So stop by, interact with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you for listening. Until next
Thanks,
time,
guys.
we'll see you next time.